when you look back over your life, I would be willing to bet that almost every bad, destructive habit you have developed because of your connection with someone or a group of someone's. So you see how the habit cycle works in developing a good habit. We make it easy. We start with the cue. Everything kind of comes from there. Well, the same thing is true, except flipped when it comes to a bad habit. In a bad habit, if we're going to break it, we need to make it hard instead of easy. And the place we start first is, again, with the cue. Listen to what Proverbs chapter 4, verse 13, verse 15 says. Again, Solomon giving us wise counsel here. Take hold of my instructions. Don't let them go. Guard them, for they are the key to life. In other words, hold on to what I'm about to tell you because it's going to reap big benefits for you in your life. And here's what he says, verse 14. Don't do as the wicked do. Don't follow the path of evildoers. Don't even think about it. Don't go that way. Turn away and keep moving. Solomon says not only should we not go down the road that leads to death like he told us about earlier, we shouldn't even think about it. We shouldn't develop these kind of habits in our lives that lead us down the path of death and destruction, the path away from God and his plan and purpose for our lives. He says don't even think about going down that path. What's he talking about? He's talking about killing that cycle, short-circuiting that cycle before it ever has to get a chance to get rolling in your life. Well, how do you do that? Well, again, the easiest way to start is to attack the cue. There are 5 kind of common cues that all of us experience that are typically the cues for almost every bad habit that gets established in our lives. I'm going to walk you through them real quick. The first one is specific places. How many of you have ever been to Krabby Mike's at Myrtle Beach? Some of you are too embarrassed to admit it. I used to go to Krabby Mike's all the time when we would go to Myrtle Beach. Krabby Mike's is an all-you-can-eat buffet. And on the buffet, there's one item that I go to Krabby Mike's for. There's one item while I spend, I don't even know what it is now, I hadn't been in years, it's probably $35, $40 now just to get in the door. I don't eat salad, I don't eat any appetizers, I don't eat anything else on that buffet but one thing when I go to Krabby Mike's, crab legs. And I can just about eat my entire family's combined weight in crab legs. And before I get to Krabby Mike's, I'm so excited. We've been waiting all year for this. Vacation is here. Krabby Mike's, here we come. I sit down and I gorge myself on crab legs. And when I leave that restaurant, I am completely miserable. I never want to see a Krabby Mike's after I leave there because I eat so much. I just gorge myself. We have a Brazilian steakhouse in Greensboro where I'm from that Amy and I got to go to one time for a special event. Any of you ever been to one of these Brazilian steakhouses? They give you a puck. And on one side of the puck, it's green. On the other side of the puck, it's red. And as long as your puck is on green by your place at the table, they just keep bringing meat. All kinds of meat from all over, cooked all kinds of different ways, seasoned all kinds of different ways. And again, I'm not going to the salad bar. I'm not eating any appetizers. Don't need no sides. Just keep the meat coming. My puck stayed on green all night long. And listen, I'm being a little funny to set this point up, but I am as serious as I can be when I say this. I literally felt guilty of committing the sin of gluttony after I left that restaurant that night. I was in a meat coma. Like I literally felt like I was going to have a heart attack before I got home. And I actually prayed and repented for gluttony in that restaurant. There are certain places you go that you get in the habit of doing things that are unhealthy for you. It might be a place that you go with the boys after work on a Friday. It might be a place where you and the girls gather to gossip. Pray for your friends. But when we go to those places, we are triggered to do things that aren't always good for us. Again, going back to Solomon's words in Proverbs chapter 4, don't go that way. What way? The way that leads you over there. Because over there is not where you need to be. And the way to keep from going over there is to not even think about getting on the path that leads you there. Some of us could break these destructive habits in our life today if we would just stop going to some of the places that we go to that lead to us doing those things. We need to evaluate where we go and what we do when we're there. And if we can, eliminate those places altogether. If they're places that you can't keep from, I got news for y'all. All of y'all got to go home today. You can't stay here. You got a home to take care of. You got a house. You got a family. It might be your home that's triggering some of that. Obviously, you can't change that, but you can become aware of how you act and respond in certain places and begin attacking that cycle before, again, it has the chance to spin up and produce this bad habit in your life. Another cue that we all encounter are specific times. I've walked alongside a lot of men who have been addicted to pornography and tried to break porn in their life. And you know something I discovered in all those men, and even in my own life when I've struggled with this at times, I'm not struggling with porn at 8 a.m. when I'm sitting at the table eating breakfast with my kids before they go to school. Most guys that struggle with porn do so in the dark of night after everyone else in their family is asleep and unaware of what they are doing. For some of us, it's certain times of year, maybe a certain holiday or a date on the calendar that marks some crisis we've been through. And when that day rolls around or the week leading up to that day, we find ourselves engaging in behavior that ends up taking a grip on us that is unhealthy for us. And so we got to recognize those times so we can be aware of the craving that's going to come in that moment and cut it off before we ever take action. For some of us, it's specific moods. Some of us are in the habit of doing things we shouldn't do when we're hungry, right? Come on, married couples, where you at? Right, ladies, when he's hungry, that's not the time to bring some big life-changing thing to the table. Feed that man first, then have a conversation. Some of us are in the habit of doing things we shouldn't do when we're angry. So when I'm angry, I have the habit of putting my fist through the sheetrock, or throwing my phone across the room, or getting in my car and disappearing for the next 4 hours, or clamming up and not saying anything at all, just completely withdrawing. We got to watch our moods. Some of us are in real bad shape because we're in the habit of doing bad things that we shouldn't do when we're hangry, when we're hungry and angry, all at the same time. And we know what that looks like, right? In fact, when you study this out, you'll come across this acronym that I discovered called HALT. Hungry, angry, lonely, and tired. That's when we are most vulnerable to destructive behavior in our life that leads to destructive habits in our lives. And so we got to be aware of that. Again, cut it off before it gets started. How about specific moments? Again, maybe it's, situations you're in. You get in a fight with your spouse, and afterwards you pick up the phone and bash them to your mom and dad. Or you put the kids down for bed, and it's been a rough day in the office, and you need something to help you unwind and kind of unload some pressure, and so you have a glass of wine. And at first that's one a week, and then all of a sudden it's 2 nights a week, and now before you know it, you can't go to sleep at night until you have 2, 3, 4 glasses of wine in you. It's those moments that kind of cue the destructive behavior in us. And then lastly, and I think probably the most powerful one, specific people. Many of us have the bad habits we have because the people we hang out with helped us start them. We read earlier that the average kid gets their phone when they're 13. My generation, we didn't have phones. I started smoking when I was 13. That's what I did. And you know why I started smoking at the age of 13? And why I started smoking Camel non-filter cigarettes? Right? About fell out of a tree the first time I ever smoked a cigarette. Because you know why? I was in a tree with a buddy of mine who smoked Camel non-filter cigarettes. And when you look back over your life, I would be willing to bet that almost every bad, destructive habit you have you have developed because of your connection with someone or a group of someone's. In fact, I was talking this week to a friend of mine, and they were sharing some concern about someone who's very close to them, someone they actually care about a lot. And they were explaining that when this person is with a particular friend, they drink way too much, get drunk, and that has caused big problems in their relationship. When I look back over my life, the same thing is true for me. The habits that I developed, that I've had to break throughout my life, I developed because of the people I associated with. And the Bible speaks of this time and time again. I'll give you just two references for sake of time this morning. 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 33. Bad company corrupts good character. Character doesn't get destroyed overnight. Character gets destroyed one bad decision after another, one compromise after another. And when we surround ourselves with bad company who lead us into these behaviors that over time become habits that are destructive in our lives, our character gets corrupted. Proverbs 13, verse 20. Walk with the wise and become wise. Associate with fools, get in trouble. Why? Because they're going to lead you to do some things that are not good for you. They're not wise for you. They don't help you grow and mature in your relationship with Jesus and get closer to God and His plan and purpose for you. They do the exact opposite. They lead you away from that. And in my generation, this only applied to the people that you physically hung out with. This generation has it much harder because now this also includes the people that you associate with and follow online. There is a reason they call them social media influencers. They get paid big money because they influence your behavior. What you think, how you vote, where you shop, how you spend your time, how you spend your money, how you dress, the music you look to, where you shop, where you don't, what you promote, what you don't. And again, going back to our earlier stat, some of us are spending 4 hours a day. Some of us are going to spend 10 years of our life being influenced by people on social media. And you think about the times that you do this. What are the cues? For some of you, the best thing you could do for yourself right now is to stop taking your phone into the bathroom. Come on, let's be honest. Right? Don't take it in there. Because what should have been a 3-minute job is now a 25-minute job. Can we just be honest? It's so subtle. These things, we don't even realize that we're doing it. You know why? Because we're in the habit. You're not thinking about it. A habit is not something you wake up every day and say, I'm going to do. A habit is something you wake up and do because you've been doing it every day for the last 10 years of your life. And so we got to be aware of this. Like Solomon said, we got to examine ourselves. We got to test ourselves and see. And are there any destructive, bad habits that are keeping me from becoming who God's called me to be and experiencing what God wants me to experience? Once you know the cues, once you begin recognizing the triggers and the cravings that those cues spark in you, then you can begin intervening and short-circuiting that cycle before you ever take action and begin developing this habit.